Welcome to Deep Dark Depths, where shadows whisper secrets and nightmares become reality. Prepare yourself for 3 tales of absolute terror. Tonight, we explore the thin veil between sanity and madness, traversing from Brazil to Tokyo, ending with a twist of betrayal. Our first harrowing tale introduces Gabriela, a young woman whose family history in Brazil is stained by a dark, mysterious figure. Gabriela always felt a strange presence lurking in her childhood home, a sensation that something invisible was constantly watching her family. Decades ago, her sister claimed to see a tall man standing motionless in the garden, holding a black umbrella under clear skies. The figure never moved or spoke, simply standing there with that umbrella, casting a long, unnatural shadow over their happy lives. Driven by a dangerous curiosity, Gabriela decided to use an old Ouija board to communicate with the entity haunting her memories. She gathered with a skeptical friend, lighting candles to set the mood, unaware that she was opening a door to hell. At first, the movement was subtle, a slight twitch beneath their fingertips. But soon, the planchette began to glide with purpose. When asked who was present, the board spelled out a word that froze Gabriela's blood cold. Umbrella. The entity had returned. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly, the temperature dropping drastically as the candles were extinguished by a non-existent wind gust. A sinister creak echoed through the silence as the wardrobe door slowly drifted open, revealing nothing but an abyss of darkness. Gabriela glanced at the mirror and screamed, seeing the distinct outline of the man with the umbrella standing right behind them. Panic took over as they scrambled to escape the room, their hearts pounding against their ribs like trapped birds in a cage. That night was only the beginning of a relentless torment that would follow Gabriela, no matter where she tried to hide. Objects began to move on their own, whispers filled the hallways at night, and the smell of wet earth permeated the house. Sleep became a luxury she could not afford, as nightmares plagued her mind and physical touches woke her from deep slumbers. She sought help from a local medium, but the old woman refused to enter, sensing a malevolence too ancient to challenge. One morning, she found a black umbrella resting outside her bedroom door, a physical token of the entity's encroaching proximity. Desperate for a fresh start, Gabriela packed her life into boxes and moved to the United Kingdom, hoping to leave the horror behind. For a few months, the hauntings ceased, and she began to believe that the ocean between them had broken the curse. But one rainy afternoon in London, she froze as she spotted a familiar silhouette standing motionless across the busy intersection. It was him. The entity had not been left behind. It had merely waited for the perfect moment to reveal itself again. She ran until her lungs burned, realizing that you cannot outrun a shadow that has attached itself to your very soul. Her apartment in London soon became a prison of fear, with lights flickering and the temperature dropping whenever she was alone. Every night, at exactly 3 in the morning, heavy knocking would pound against her front door, but nobody was ever there. She realized that the Ouija board had acted as a beacon, marking her soul for this entity to follow across continents. Her dreams were invaded by visions of black umbrellas falling from the sky, burying her alive in a sea of darkness. She began to document everything, hoping that if she disappeared, someone would understand the evil that had claimed her life. Looking back at old family photos, she noticed the blurry figure had always been there, lurking in the background of her childhood. The gap between them closed. He was no longer watching from afar. He was now standing right inside her personal space. Gabriella's story serves as a chilling warning. Never invite the unknown into your home, for it may never leave you. We now travel to the neon-lit streets of Tokyo, where a young man named Henry was about to experience urban horror. Henry had just moved into a cheap apartment to save money, ignoring the warnings about why the rent was so low. The walls were paper thin, and from the very first night, Henry could hear unsettling noises coming from his next-door neighbor. It wasn't normal household noise. It sounded like heavy machinery and grinding metal echoing late into the silent Tokyo nights. He finally met the neighbor in the hallway, a gaunt man with bulging eyes who stared at Henry without blinking once. Henry tried to be polite, but the man simply smiled a wide, unnatural grin that sent shivers down Henry's spine. One night, the grinding noise was replaced by the terrifying roar of a chainsaw revving aggressively right through the thin wall. Fed up and exhausted, Henry banged on the neighbor's door, shouting for silence, unaware of the danger he was provoking. The door creaked open just a crack, revealing a single, bloodshot eye staring back at him with intense, maniacal focus. In a raspy whisper, the neighbor spoke Henry's full name, something Henry had never shared with anyone in the building. Terrified by this breach of privacy, Henry retreated to his room, locking every bolt and pushing a chair against the door. The next day, he found his trash bags ripped open, his personal documents and letters carefully arranged in a pile. He called the police, but they dismissed it as a civil dispute, advising him to simply ignore the eccentric neighbor. That night, the chainsaw returned, but this time it sounded different, as if it was cutting through wet, dense meat. Henry peered through the peephole and saw a dark, viscous liquid slowly pooling out from under his neighbor's door. He reached for his phone, but froze when he heard heavy footsteps stop directly in front of his own apartment door. The doorknob slowly turned, followed by the agonizing sound of long fingernails scratching against the painted metal surface. A folded piece of paper slid under the door. Henry picked it up with trembling hands, dreading what was written inside. The note was written in crude, shaky English, reading simply, "I know you are alone in there, Henry." Summoning his courage, Henry looked through the peephole again, but the hallway was empty, the neighbor's door standing wide open. Silence had fallen. Foolishly, Henry unlocked his door and peeked out, trying to understand what was happening in the hallway. In a heartbeat, the neighbor stepped out from the shadows, his clothes drenched in fresh, crimson blood. He wasn't holding the chainsaw. Instead, he gripped the mutilated body of a stray animal, offering it like a gift. With that same sickening smile, he whispered, "This was just practice for next time," before dropping the carcass at Henry's feet. Henry slammed the door and collapsed, realizing that his cheap apartment might eventually cost him his life. He moved out the very next morning, leaving everything behind. But the image of that bloody smile would haunt him forever. As the camera lingers on the empty apartment, the faint sound of a chainsaw revving begins again from the other side. Our final story takes us to a dark highway where Marcus was on the phone with his girlfriend, Sarah. Sarah was home alone, her voice trembling as she told Marcus she heard strange noises coming from the backyard. Marcus tried to reassure her, telling her it was likely just the wind or a stray animal, urging her to stay calm. Suddenly, the sound of shattering glass echoed through the phone. Sarah screamed, realizing someone had just broken into the house. Panic exploded. Marcus shouted for her to hide as Sarah sprinted to the bedroom, locking herself in and sliding under the bed. Hiding under the bed, she whispered terrifying updates to Marcus, describing the heavy footsteps slowly ascending the wooden staircase. Every step was a hammer blow to her heart. The intruder was taking his time, moving with a deliberate, predatory pace. Marcus promised he was calling the police on another line, his voice a steady anchor in the chaotic storm of her fear. The bedroom doorknob rattled violently. Sarah held her breath, praying that the lock would hold against the monster outside. With a deafening crash, the door was kicked open. Heavy boots walked into the room, stopping right beside the bed. The intruder slowly crouched down. Sarah stared into the mask of her attacker, her scream cut short by sheer terror. Marcus listened to the struggle, the screams, and the final thud. But strangely, the panic on his face began to fade. Silence fell over the line. The crying had stopped. The struggle was over. Marcus calmly asked, "Is it done?" A deep, unfamiliar voice on the other end replied, "It's done. She won't be cheating on anyone ever again." A cold smile spread across Marcus's face. He hadn't been calling the police. He had been coordinating the hit all along. Weeks earlier, Marcus had discovered her infidelity. Instead of leaving, he meticulously planned a punishment that fit his twisted morality. He hired a professional, scripted the break-in, and played the role of the concerned boyfriend to establish his perfect alibi. When he arrived at the scene, he played the grieving partner perfectly, his tears masking the satisfaction of his revenge. No one suspected him. To the world, he was a victim. In reality, he was the monster who opened the door. 3 stories, 3 different kinds of horror. The supernatural, the psychotic neighbor, and the evil that hides behind a loved one's smile. Gabriella learned that some doors, once opened, can never be closed, allowing darkness to seep into every corner of life. Henry discovered that you never truly know who lives on the other side of the wall, or what they are capable of. And Sarah's fate reminds us that the most dangerous monsters aren't under the bed. They are the ones we trust most. Fear is a universal language. It transcends borders, from the rain of Brazil to the neon of Tokyo, to your own home. These stories are merely glimpses into the abyss. The real horror is wondering if you are the next protagonist in our tales. So tonight, before you turn off the lights, check the locks, check the closet, and pray that you are truly alone. Beware of the man with the umbrella. He waits in the rain, patient and eternal, watching for his next opportunity. Listen closely to the sounds of your neighbors. That grinding noise might not be renovation. It might be a warning. And be careful who you trust with your heart. Betrayal can be deadly, and revenge is a dish best served cold. The line between reality and nightmare is thinner than you think. Once you cross it, there is no turning back. Darkness is not just the absence of light. It is a presence. It is alive. It is hungry. And it is waiting. We invite you to dwell in this darkness a little longer. Let the fear settle in your bones and sharpen your senses. Did you hear that sound? Was it the house settling? Or was it a footstep? Your mind plays tricks. Or perhaps not. Basements and attics hold the memories of a house. They also hold the things that the previous owners left behind. Mirrors are portals. When you look into them in the dark, try not to look too closely at what stands behind you. The witching hour approaches, the time when the veil is weakest, and the things from the deep, dark depths can cross over. Innocence is often the first casualty of horror. What was once a place of play becomes a landscape of dread. We hope these stories have unsettled you. Comfort is the enemy of survival. Fear keeps you alert. Fear keeps you alive. The moon hides its face, leaving us to navigate the shadows alone. But remember, you are never truly alone in the dark. Every scream, every gasp, every heartbeat adds a new page to the archives of the deep, dark depths. We explore the psychology of terror, probing the fragile limits of the human mind when confronted with the impossible. Like a lighthouse in a storm, we shine a light on the macabre, revealing the reefs where sanity is wrecked. Can you hear the chorus of the damned? They have so many stories to tell, and we have only just begun. Salt lines and sage may offer comfort, but true evil knows no boundaries. It finds a way in. It always does. Check your closet one more time. Are those clothes hanging there? Or is it a figure waiting for you to sleep? Animals see what we cannot. If your pet stares at an empty corner, do not dismiss it. Leave the room immediately. Electricity fluctuates when spirits are near. A flickering bulb is not always a wiring issue. It is often a signal. The ghosts of the past linger in the objects they loved. They sit in their chairs, watching the living take their place. Windows are the eyes of a house, but they also allow things to look in. Always draw your curtains at night. Patience is a virtue of the predator. They will wait for years, watching and learning, until the moment is perfect to strike. The music stops, the lights fade, and the show ends. But the feeling of dread will follow you out of this video. If you enjoyed these tales of terror, do not forget to leave a like, for it feeds the algorithm of the abyss. Subscribe to our channel to join our community of lost souls. Don't miss the next episode of nightmares we have prepared. This has been Deep, Dark Depths. Sleep well, if you can. We will see you in the shadows. Goodbye.